be examples for our children. Whether we know it or not, your kid is paying attention to everything that you do. When you wake up in the morning, your schedule, the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, little things like that, like they are picking up from. And we need to show up. And when I say show up, I don't mean just wake up in the morning, feed them, bathe them, the normal things. We have to show up academically. And I'm not saying that, all teachers are bad. But, I had an incident at my daughter's school where she got into a situation with some other young women. And instead of addressing her about the situation, the principal had kind of just went ahead and changed my daughter's schedule. And so my daughter called me all worked up. I went home, picked her up, and as I get home, she's like, Mom, they're changing my schedule. Like, this isn't fair. She hasn't even talked to me. And then I start to get like the notifications on my phone that they're changing her schedule. Now it's after school hours, so I can't talk to the principal right now. So I called her back, the next day. And she said, Well, your daughter wouldn't talk to me. So I had no choice but to go ahead and do what I had to do. And she said to me, Well, it was easier for me to change one person's schedule than to change the other three, even though these other three girls were essentially ganging up on her. Um, and she said, I asked her, I said, well, have you ever, talked to me before? Have you ever encountered with me, like anything? She said, no. I said, what about the other girls? Have you ever spoken to their parents? She said, yeah, I know them very well. I said, so why wouldn't you reach out to me? She said, well, not many parents show up. You call them, you get the voicemail. I said, but you didn't even attempt to, you know? And had I not, once we went there, we got everything situated. But had I not shown up, they would have just pushed my daughter essentially to the side and not even given her a chance to speak for herself. So our kids already feel like they don't have a voice. So it's time for you to essentially show up for them and let them know that they have a voice. And I know sometimes it's not always the teacher, sometimes it is the kids, because we know how our kids are when they're not at home. Um, and if they tell you a certain teacher is treating them different, and I'm not saying go to the school and cause a scene, but it's nice to do some research and see what's going on. Do some searching for yourself so that you know. Check their homework. And I'm a big one on this of not getting frustrated when I'm helping with homework. Because that new school homework is different than what I'm used to. If you got a kid, but we have to show up in each of these aspects. Kids get good grades, yes, but we still need to ask them like, how was your science test? How was this? Just to tap into them and see what their interests are. Like my daughter likes social studies a lot. I hated social studies growing up. It was the hardest subject in the world, but she loves it. So I ask her about it, and I'm learning things from her. And she shares things that she learns, and I love that for us to do that. Um, so I just want to say, don't just send your kid to school. Find out about the school, what's going on at school. Ask them questions, and talk to them. You never know what you might find out just from having a conversation about your kid's day at school. And I know a lot of times the kids come home, you say, how was school? They say good, and that's kind of it. But you have to push, you have to say, hey, can you elaborate on that? Or, hey, how was math class? Or even start it out like, what did you eat for lunch? You just have to initiate the conversation essentially. Um, Secondly, I say show up for your kids medically. You know your child better than anybody else. If you feel that something is wrong with your child, you can take them to the doctor. You can take them to the emergency room, and the doctor can send you home and say, "Hey, it's just a small cold. They'll be fine." But in the back of your mind that something's wrong, and you have to continue to push forward with that. I'm always going to share again. My youngest, when she was like 9 months, she was really sick, like sicker than I ever seen her. I took her to the doctor. They said it was just a cold. I took her to the emergency room. They sent us home. I took her back to the doctor. They sent us home. So I took her back to the emergency room because she was not healing. Last time that I took her to the emergency room, she was admitted and she stayed in the hospital for 5 days because she had an unknown virus that they could not diagnose. She was vomiting, like she couldn't keep anything down. She was severely dehydrated, running a crazy high temperature. She had to have an IV. She couldn't have any fluids because they had to drain her essentially to figure out what was wrong with her. Come to find out, they still don't know to this day what the infection was, but there was an infection somewhere which they believe was in her intestines because of her allergy to milk. So this entire 9 months, she was just receiving milk, and they didn't know that she was allergic. We didn't know that she was allergic to it. So the infection was just building up. But it took for me to take her, 3 or 4 times for me to finally get an answer. But I knew something was wrong with my child, and it's funny because me and my mom was kind of like, my mom was like, "You just keep taking her to the doctor." I'm like, "Mom, something's wrong with my baby, you know." And then finally, when we were in the hospital, she was like, "Oh, I'm coming. Here I come." But we just it's just small things like that that you might not think matter, but there are specialists out there. You know, I only go to Children's Hospital. It's nothing against any other hospital, but when it comes to my kids, I'm going straight to Children's every time. They have excellent doctors. I actually have doctors in my family, so I do have the guidance of them. But use your resources, use what you know to fight for your children. You really have to do that. And yeah, and Julia said, think that's why sitting at the table without electronics is important as far as being a part of your children's life academically. Yeah, make them put the phones down, make them talk to you face to face. We're family. We sit down and have dinner together. Or I know we don't have time to have breakfast in the morning, but we have a routine where I take my kids to school in the morning together. Just things literally like that. And then moving on to the next topic. Be there physically for your kids. Be present. Show up. Come to their basketball games. Come to their football games. Come to the cheerleading games. All the sporting events. And I'm guilty of this too. My daughter is a cheerleader, and y'all, cheerleading is just not a thing for me. Like it's really hard for me to support. It's not hard for me to support it, but it's hard for me because growing up in school, I always talked about the cheerleaders, y'all. Like I really would be like, cheerleading is not a sport. And then I had a cheerleading child. Like that's crazy to me. So just show up. Show up at like give them a ride to school in the morning. Come to the bus stop every now and then. And I'm not saying you have to do this every day, but just physically be there for your child, just so they can see your presence. My daughter had a cheerleading competition a few months ago, and when they went on, I had moved my seat and I went to the back. And so I was sitting far away recording them so I could get a good video. As soon as they were done, she texted me and said, "Oh no, you missed my show." And I said, "Baby, I didn't. I recorded the whole thing." And she was like, "But I didn't see you in your seat," because she thought I was sitting somewhere else than where I was. But I realized how important that was for my presence to be there. She wanted to see me when she looked up in the stands and she didn't. So she thought that I missed that. And all of these topics are a form of love. Each way that we breaking it down is showing them, oh, my mom came to school and she fought for me and talked to this teacher and told them, like my mom does got my back. My mom does believe in me. My mom does trust me. We have to show them that we do trust them and constantly make them feel like they have to prove themselves to us. I mean, which they do at the same time, but we still have to let them know that we're there. Even just complimenting them, just saying, "Hey, you look nice today," and things like that just bring a smile to their face. And being in the physical, helping them get ready in the morning. Or even one of my Facebook friends posted how he doesn't work while his kids is at school. He works overnight. But when his son gets up in the morning, he makes sure that he gets up in the morning just so his son doesn't see someone else laying in bed. Because we all know how hard it is to get up in the morning when everybody else is sleeping and you have to get up and go to work. I don't want to go to work. Like this kid's been on vacation for the past week and a half, and I'm like, well, why do I have to go to work? Because they don't have to go to school. So I just want to say, just show up, just be present for them, have their back. Your kids matter, you matter too, and the more you show them how much they matter, the more they can reciprocate that back to you. Um, yeah. And the next topic that I wanted to hit was emotionally. Allow your kids to, Julia says, showing up, being present for their emotional needs. Bullying and depression and suicide is high among our youth. And it is because these kids are going through a lot more than what we know, especially at school. Kids are cruel these days. I thought kids were mean when I was growing up, but with the cell phones, it really boils down to the cell phones. If your kid has a cell phone, check that cell phone. I don't care if it's like, and I do unexpected cell phone checks. Hey, what you doing? Oh, you just came home from school? Okay, let me see your phone. Wake up in the morning. Let me see your phone. Just randomly. I never let her know when I'm going to do it. Just because you don't know what you might find. And it's not always, and I'm not going to say it's always the other kids that's being wild and crazy. Sometimes it's my kid. You have to check your kid just as much as you're checking for other kids as well. Because sometimes you never know. Kids, peer pressure is big. And we know because we went through it. You know what I'm saying? So it's time for us to everything that we learned as children. I don't think you obviously realized it till we got older. But as I'm watching my daughter in her teenage years, I'm just like, wow, well, what was I doing at 13? Honestly, I don't really remember. I'd be trying to, but I also didn't have a cell phone at 13. I didn't have access to group FaceTimes and group chat. The group chats alone are just like too much. Like literally, their phones ring non-stop always. Um, but it's literally just being present, checking the TikToks and social media. A lot of kids these days have social media. If your kid has social media, check their social media. I don't allow my kids to have social media besides TikTok, and I try to limit TikTok as well because we know TikTok can do some devilish things. But some of the social media, these kids can, you can't see what they say. They can delete, they can block out stuff, or any messages that are sent, they disappear after 5 seconds. Things like that. So yeah, just check the phones, just check homework, check the grades. If the teacher's saying your kid isn't doing this, find out why. Find out what's bothering them. And which leads me to my next topic of being there emotionally for your child. Um, I feel like growing up, we was always told, strong black woman, men don't cry, and I think it's time for us to stray away from that. We have to feel our emotions. We have to allow our kids to feel their emotions because kids feel emotions. They have emotions. They have feelings. They go through things. They go through stress because of school. They go through stress for the next science test because they don't understand the chemistry formula. I know I did too. And back then we just kind of just I just kind of dealt with the consequences. Okay, I failed the science test. I just gotta tell my mom I might have to take it over the summer. I don't know, but you have to literally say like it's okay that we are strong humans. We are, but it's okay to be weak, and it's just teaching them to express their feelings and teaching them how to express them. Teach them different coping mechanisms. If you can't find someone who can, there's nothing wrong with putting your kid in therapy. A lot of us need therapy, so it's nothing wrong with getting our kids started on it early if you recognize certain behaviors. um, Instead of, oh, I feel like, I'm not gonna say all doctors, but some doctors try to label our kids instead of just giving them the help that they need. Sometimes the kid doesn't need a label or a pill. They literally just need a way to cope. Like they might just get upset in class. They need a moment to take a breather by themselves. Hey, I just gotta walk outside real quick, because what happens is essentially with us not giving our kids all of these things, they search for them other places. Everything that you don't provide to your kid, they're going to go searching for in other people and other things. They're gonna look for that feeling that they feel like they're missing. The same for the kids growing up without a dad. They're gonna go searching for that manly guidance, that manly love. Things like that that you don't want your kid to search for. And certain things are inevitable. I do understand that, but emotionally, it is 2023, and it's time for us to step up as parents to be there for our kids, to make our presence known because our kids are not seeing much of their parents' presence known. um, and again, myself too am guilty of that, even if it's just coming to practice. um, if you can't make the game that week, you're making up with practice during the week. You have to. And then emotionally, not saying, hey, stop crying. Like, no, why are you crying? What is making you cry? Well, I don't know. Well, tell me what you're thinking about. Teach your kid to journal. Teach them. I had a teacher one time who journaled with me. She had us create our own journals, and we would write to her, and she would write back to us. And then like I don't even know how we she did it, but we did it like twice a week. When we had the class, she would write back to us. We just kept going like that. And I found the journal a few years ago. I still had it, and it made me think like, wow, I wonder if I journal now because essentially I journaled with her. Like, where did I learn to journal? And it seemed like it started right there with her. Like that was the root of it for me. Um, and that's an emotional coping mechanism as well. Come home and write down your feelings. Come home and write down your day. If you feel like kids feel like they can't talk, like they can't tell us certain things because you are their parents. So yes, they're not gonna always want to tell you everything. Um, but as they go forward, they need to know that they can confide in you, that they can let you know what's going on in their lives. And it gives them a comfort because when they come home, they can say, "Hey, mom, guess what happened?" Like, "Oh, I can't wait to go home and tell my mom." And I remember telling teachers, like, "You don't want me to go home and tell my mom." So, maybe they respond to you different. Um, the kids need us, and it's time for us to be there for them. And I'm not saying, pacify them, don't coddle them. We know that that can be too much. Um, but there is a right way and a wrong way to do that for them. And be truthful with them. If they say, "Hey, so and so is picking on me because of my skin," and I know your kid has bad eczema. Well, honey, you have bad eczema. We've been working on finding a cream for it. You have to teach them different things. Like, I have a daughter who's a little more heavyweight than other kids, and her father is a little on the heavy side too. So he's teaching her coping mechanisms. Like, yeah, because people are only gonna say what they can see about you. They're gonna say that you're heavy because they can't say anything else. And he said, he told her, you have to tell people I'm big and beautiful. Like, you have to teach them things that to say back to themselves, to give them the confidence in themselves at the same time, because these kids can uh, degrade other kids. Essentially, is what they do. They make you feel less than because you don't have what they have or you don't look a certain way, and that's not what society is about. God made each and every one of us. He made us all different for a reason. We're all different and beautiful in our own way, and it's time for us to teach our kids that. Our kids are. I just want to give you a little bit of scripture too. The Bible says that children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring are a reward from Him. If God gave you the ability to have kids, you're special because not everyone can do that. Not everyone gets the luxury of carrying a child, and there are women out there who want to carry a child, and women who out there who can't. There's men out there who can't help their wife conceive. You never know how that makes them feel, and I always feel like God has a separate plan for those people because maybe He wants them to adopt because He knows that they could nurture a child differently if they didn't have their own. But you still don't know how that makes them feel, even though they have to adopt. And we have to treat our kids as such. You take yourself to the nail shop every 2 weeks. Take your kid every 4 weeks. Like they don't have to go the same amount of time that you go, but that's a hangout time for you guys. Let's go get our nails and feet done. Let's go. Fathers, when you take your son to the barbershop, like, hey, let's go grab something to eat. Just little things like that that you can already do and that you do for yourself already that you can kind of incorporate them and to let them into your time as well. And I know you want alone time. I love my alone time too. But learning to incorporate my alone time with them and share it with them does show me a different side of them. It gets them to open up to me. It gets them to tell me, "Oh, mom, sometimes kids just talk." So while they're getting their feet done, "Mom, this feels so good. Did you know at school this girl was talking about my feet?" Like things you just didn't know. And I love how that just comes out. I love how it comes about. And it lets me know that my kid is confident, that her heart is opening up to me, and she's receptive to what I'm saying. So even if she's not just coming out and saying it, even I know just in general conversation it'll come out. And then my last point for today was mentally. Um, Mentally, we need to be there for our kids to help them, just to think clearly, to make good decisions. Um, because mental health is very important. As Julia said earlier, with the suicide rates being up, I seen before I came here, someone posted that on TikTok there was something, not TikTok, Roblox, the video game that the kids play. My daughter loves it. They were inboxing her, telling her, if you want to play this Roblox game, you must follow these steps. Step one, get a blade. Step two, get a eraser and erase your skin as hard as you can, five lines, and then go down with it with the blade and make a line. Like just like I didn't read all of it, but it's just like you don't know what these kids are getting because there's so much. Like, and who even knew you can message on Roblox? I knew you could play a game, and I knew they could talk, But it's the same way with the PlayStation and the Xbox. They got these game centers where they can talk on the microphones. I hear my nephew on there all the time talking to his friends, but it takes 2 seconds for them to play with a stranger to say, "Hey, what you wearing today?" You never know. So you have to teach them to be aware of the mentally challenging things. You have to let them know that mental challenges are gonna come. The devil wants our mind, essentially. That's the first thing he comes after. So if we can teach them to protect it, teach them about God and the power of God and how to pray and just to keep going and write things down, or just to cope. They literally, even reaching out to a school counselor, that's what they're there for. I reach out to my daughter's counselor, hey, this is what's going on at home. Can you talk to her and see what you get out of it? And I know they have like this confidential thing that they can't tell me everything, but I know that, oh, hey, yes, I did talk to her. She seems fine, but she did want to talk, so we're going to meet 3 times a week. Oh, cool. Thank you. Like just things like that help kids know that other people are there for them. And don't be negative when they tell you like, hey, I have this really cool teacher who I can talk to, because kids need outlets besides their parents. They need, and just because she's talking to that teacher doesn't mean she thinks less of you as a parent, or you just have to trust that, yeah, you can look into the teacher and make sure everything is just conversation, but kids need other outlets as well. And then I'm also teaching my kid, you can't trust all of your friends. You can have 5 friends. I'm not telling you can't, but you can't tell each friend how you're feeling. You can't tell them all your business. Each friend doesn't need to know. You have to find one friend, maybe two, that you can confide in. Because if you feel like you need to tell more than one, then that's how your business essentially gets spread out there. And these kids have cell phones and things spread like a wildfire, literally. Um, and I just want to say, children grow. The Bible said, I found a scripture. It says, even youth grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. So it's not it's to say that kids, they grow tired, they get weary, they fall down, but they have to learn at a young age how to get back up. That they can't stay there. That's why the suicide rate is so high. Kids don't want to fight. They don't know what fighting is. They shouldn't have to, because they shouldn't have to fight for their lives at 13 and 9 years old. That's why our presence is so important. And I say, even as parents, you have to look out for other kids, because if you notice little so and so's parents aren't showing up to the games, like, hey, good job out there. I see you. You're doing great. Keep up the good work. Compliments like that go a long way. And you don't have to be personal with them. It's just throwing out a shout out, just randomly throwing out that compliment to that kid. Kids love adults because they look up to us and they see you, they greet you with a smile. And not all kids, I know some kids are a little more work in progress, but even still, say hi to the kid that you know is a work in progress. Show them some gentleness. Kids need gentleness, kids need love, and they need us to be present for them as the generation before them. And also too, this wasn't really one of my topics, but discipline is important too. And I looked in the Bible, and it's still in the Bible that says discipline your child. um, it says, discipline them in the matter that the Lord has disciplined us. So you still can discipline your kid without abusing them. And you still have to discipline them to raise them, essentially. So, gentle parenting is great and everything. I'm all for it. But at the same time, they still have to know boundaries and they still have to know rules. And that's what raises them up. The Bible says, train up the child in the way he shall go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Because kids know what they learn. The things that we teach them at a young age are instilled in them. My mom taught us to, for example, she taught us to say hi to the janitor, to greet everybody with the same respect. So when I'm somewhere and I see the cleaning lady, I make sure I speak. I notice at my job a lot when I speak to the cleaning people, it's like they are so surprised that somebody spoke to them. And I'm just like, do people not talk to you guys? But it's literally little things like that you'll see in your child growing up, and see that can change their lives. You never know. You never know if you're raising the next Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, the next Oprah, because kids have so much potential, and I think these things are important to help them tap into it. Every kid isn't strong enough to just say, okay, well, my mom was just hard and closed off, and I'm gonna survive. Okay, my dad wasn't there and it didn't matter. It does matter because when you get to an older age, you'll see all of the problems circulating around it, wondering where did I miss? Like where did I go wrong? Because you didn't help heal them when they came to you for help. So just be there for your children. Um, it's a must. What happens again? What happens when they don't get the things they need from us? They search for them in other people, other things, which is how the chances of them trying drugs or just other things, um, emotionally, mentally, physically, academically, medically, our kids need us. So be present for your children, be aware for your children, um, and just show up. You can do it. I'm learning myself. I'm raising two kids, y'all, and I never thought I would have two kids. Whew. But my kids are 13, about to be 14 and 2. No, crazy 12-year gap. And it's like the funnest, craziest 12-year gap in the world because they still argue. Like they still, and it's learning what I had my oldest at 19, there was a lot that I didn't know. But I had my mother there to help me. And now raising my own at 30, I'm like, wow, mom, like I wouldn't have made it without you at 19. And just learning the gentleness and the importance of school interaction and just being there for them. I can't. Sometimes I'm just like, Mom, can I come home? Because how do I do this by myself? Like, and learning that don't talk to your child about the other parent. If there is a parent missing, let that parent be missing. If there is a parent that's not holding up to your standard, just let it go. The kid sees it. If they want to come and talk to you, you can certainly listen. You can say, hey, okay, dad might be going through something. I'm not saying make excuses or mom might be going through something, but don't necessarily diss them. Don't talk bad about them. Kids come up with their own. They know the real. They see it with their own eyes. They know who's good. They know who's not. But don't negate the other parent. Just try to teach your kids to still love them because at the end of the day, they're still human. As someone who grew up, you have to. I grew up without my dad. I knew who my dad was. I know who he is. He's in my life now. But it was certain parts of my life where he wasn't there, and I wanted him to be there. But had he been there for me back then, I probably wouldn't have liked him, or because of what he may have been going through at the time. But now I could tell you, I love my dad. I know my dad. We have a great relationship, and I think that part of it means a lot to me. Just the effort. So I just wanted to share that with you all today. I pray you all got something out of this. This has been on my heart for a while. I just wanted to make sure I could deliver it the right way to you all before I brought it out on the show. It's the first day, second day of the new year. I pray all of you have a great, excellent new year. Enjoy your family. Be safe. And I'll see you all next week. Thank you all for tuning in to Inject Mondays. Y'all have a blessed night.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Dante Miles, aka D Belly, aka your city councilman. I'm here at Fire 716 Radio, and I'm asking you to tune in on Thursdays at 11 on our show, The Vault. We're going to be having some conversations that's super relevant, but very important. And sometimes it may be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to make sure that we get our voices out. Come tune in on Thursdays at 11 a.m. and make sure you download the Fire 716 app. See you then.